Chris Hipkins.
Mr Chairman, thank you very much for the opportunity to take a call on this, and I just want to correct a few things that the Minister just mentioned. The first is, I think even a relatively cursory glance at the finances relating to tertiary education would show that on average, on a per-student basis, the government probably funds somewhere between 50 to 55% of the cost of a tertiary qualification, if considered on a per-student basis, not the 70% that the Minister just mentioned. A relatively cursory glance at the statistics released by Universities New Zealand would also show that over the course of a graduate's lifetime or a trainee's lifetime, if it's someone doing an industry qualification, the amount of money extra that they would earn and the extra tax they would pay more than covers the cost of providing their education, providing the subsidies, and more than covers the cost of meeting that additional component should the government of the day choose to do so, as the Labour Party is proposing. So what we find actually is the higher the level of the skill level of the population, the higher the tax take we actually get. So overall, the government fiscally ends up better off from a more highly educated population because we collect more tax because they earn more money as a result. And actually, the numbers simply stack up. And even Stephen Joyce would acknowledge that because he's the one who's touting all of the figures to justify doing certain courses of study. But the Universities of New Zealand have gone so far, not just to calculate the post-qualification earnings, but the post-qualification tax take. And the post-qualification tax take, of course, goes up as well. And it shows that actually an investment in tertiary education, whether that be a university degree, whether it be a polytech program or an on-job qualification, pays back to the government more than what it costs, even if we make it free, many, many times over. So it actually makes sense for the government to be investing in that. And this is a government that claims they're making an investment approach to social services, but not when it comes to education, apparently. But I want to turn my attention instead of that, because I actually think the evidence there is pretty clear regarding the provision of free post-school education, that it stacks up. And of course, if it didn't, then I'm sure all those members on the opposite side who benefited from a free post-school education when they had the opportunity to get one would be clamouring to pay the money back. But I want to turn instead to the issues around the school sector. And I want to commend people working in schools for the improvement in NCEA results. I think they definitely deserve a commendation for that. And I do want to say, when it comes to NCEA, it was a proposal floated by the then National Government in the 1990s, adopted by the last Labour government, and continued with by the current National Government. And I think NCEA is the right qualification system for New Zealand. I do, however, think that we need to be mindful as we push forward to encourage more and more students to gain NCEA qualifications, that we are ensuring that they are in meaningful pathways that are going to lead them to something at the other end of it. Because it is possible to increase the number of students getting NCEA, but not necessarily getting better outcomes when they leave school. And the analogy that one of the people who works in the education system used with me is it's like going to the supermarket with an empty basket. You can fill your basket up with toothbrushes, but you can't then go home and bake a cake. And if you look at NCEA being the same, if you fill your basket with a particular type of credit, that's not necessarily going to give you all of the ingredients that you need to then go somewhere else once you've got it. So now that we have got the education system on a pathway to improving NCEA results, which is a good thing, now we need to turn our attention to what's in that. What's actually in the basket? What are the skills and attributes that we're giving the kids when they leave school so that they're actually going on to doing something meaningful, whether that's employment, whether that is further education or training. And that's where I think the next big challenge and the next big step for our focus on improving results must be. Because a qualification in itself, and we've had some good interchange on the 85% target for NCEA level 2, but that in itself isn't enough. And this is the critical point. I don't think that we could hit the target, we get 100% of kids getting NCEA level 2, but if they're making those qualifications up with the wrong credits that aren't then leading them onto another pathway, are they actually better off? And I'm not convinced that they necessarily are.